My name is April, and I am 35 years old. I was standing in front of the mirror, wearing a red dress my husband picked out for my birthday. That night was supposed to be a celebration. 45 guests, champagne, laughter. But I already knew what was coming. I had known for 4 months. When his hand struck my face in front of everyone, I did not cry. I laughed. And that laugh, it destroyed everything he had been hiding. Before I begin this story, let me know in the comments where you are watching from today. If stories about standing up for yourself and finding your strength inspire you, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Trust me, you will want to stay until the very end. Because the moment his mistress saw me smile with that red mark on my cheek, her face turned white as paper. And what happened next? Nobody saw it coming. I grew up in a small town in Indiana, the kind of place where everyone knows your business. And Friday night football is treated like a religious event. My parents divorced when I was 12 years old. I remember sitting on the stairs, listening to my mother cry in the kitchen while my father packed his bags. He left for another woman. Someone younger. Someone who made him feel alive, he said. My mother never recovered from that betrayal. She worked 2 jobs to keep a roof over our heads, and she raised me with one piece of advice that she repeated like a prayer. Never depend on anyone for your happiness, April. But if you find love, real love, hold on to it with everything you have. I took those words seriously. I earned a scholarship to Northwestern University. I worked part-time jobs throughout college. I built my career in marketing brick by brick until I became a senior marketing manager at one of the largest cosmetics companies in Chicago. I was proud of what I had accomplished. I had proven that a girl from a small Indiana town could make something of herself in the big city. 9 years ago, everything changed. I was attending a marketing conference in Denver. The sessions were long and mostly boring, but during one of the networking breaks, a man approached me with a confident smile and 2 cups of coffee. His name was Derek. He was tall, charming, and worked as an investment banker in Chicago. He handed me one of the cups and said, "I noticed you looked like you needed a rescue from that last presentation." I laughed, and somehow that simple moment became the beginning of 8 years together. Derek pursued me like I was the only woman in the world. He sent flowers to my office every week. He called me late at night just to hear my voice before he fell asleep. Once he flew to Chicago on a random Tuesday just to take me to dinner because he said he missed my smile. I was cautious at first. My father's betrayal had left scars that never fully healed, but Derek was patient. He understood my walls, and he slowly, gently helped me tear them down. After 1 year of dating, Derek proposed to me in Millennium Park on a snowy December evening. The Christmas lights twinkled around us as he got down on one knee. I said yes with tears streaming down my face. For the first time in my life, I believed that maybe I would not repeat my mother's story. Maybe I had found one of the good ones. Our wedding was intimate and beautiful. We held it at a vineyard in Napa Valley with 80 guests. My mother cried throughout the ceremony, but these were happy tears. She squeezed my hand afterward and whispered, "He looks at you like you are his whole world." April. I believed her. I believed him. Derek and I bought a 4-bedroom house in the suburbs of Chicago. We had plans. I would continue climbing the corporate ladder. He would make partner at his firm. And then when the timing was right, we would start a family. Every Friday night was date night. Every summer we traveled somewhere new. Italy, Greece, Japan. Derek made breakfast every Sunday morning while I read the newspaper at the kitchen table. We hosted barbecues for our friends and clinked glasses under string lights in our backyard. I used to tell my friends that I was one of the lucky ones. I got the fairy tale, I would say. Derek is everything I ever wanted. And I meant it. every single word. But looking back now, I wonder if the signs were always there. I wonder if I chose not to see them because the truth was too painful to consider. In our 6th year of marriage, Derek started working longer hours. He was gunning for partner, he explained. The competition was fierce. I understood. I supported him. I made dinner and kept it warm for when he came home late. I kissed him good night, even when he was too tired to talk. Sometimes he would come home smelling like a perfume that was not mine. Just faint traces, easy to explain away. A colleague hugged me, he would say, or we had a client dinner. I accepted every explanation because I trusted him, because I loved him, because I could not imagine that the man who had promised me forever would ever break that promise. But the truth has a way of surfacing, no matter how deep you try to bury it. 14 months before my 35th birthday, Derek brought someone new into our lives. We were at his company's summer party, one of those rooftop events, with expensive cocktails and forced networking. Derek introduced me to a young woman named Natalie. She was 28 years old, pretty in an understated way, with dark hair pulled back in a sleek ponytail. She had just joined the firm as a junior associate. She is incredibly talented, Derek said as he introduced us. I am mentoring her, helping her navigate the firm culture. I smiled and shook Natalie's hand. I had no reason to be suspicious. Derek had mentored young associates before. It was part of being a senior banker. Besides, Natalie seemed sweet. She thanked me for welcoming her into the work family. She even texted me a few days later asking for my lasagna recipe because Derek had mentioned how good it was. Looking back, I realize how calculated that was. How she inserted herself into my life while simultaneously inserting herself into my marriage. But at the time, I saw nothing but a friendly young woman who admired my husband's professional guidance. Over the following months, small things began to shift. Derek started going to the gym more often. He changed his hairstyle, opting for something more modern. His phone, which used to sit face up on the counter, was now always face down or tucked in his pocket. He changed his password, and when I asked about it, he said the firm required stronger security measures. There were phone calls he had to take outside. Late nights at the office that stretched later and later. Our intimate life dwindled to almost nothing. He was stressed, he said. The partner track was brutal. I tried to be understanding. I tried to be the supportive wife who did not nag or question. One evening I asked him directly, "Derek, is everything okay with us? You seem distant lately." He turned on me with an irritation I had rarely seen before. "Why are you always so suspicious?" "April, do you not trust me after all these years?" I felt guilty for even asking. I apologized and let the matter drop. But a seed of doubt had been planted, and no matter how hard I tried to ignore it, it continued to grow. 10 months before my birthday, I decided to surprise Derek with dinner at his favorite restaurant. I drove downtown to his office building, planning to whisk him away for a spontaneous date night. The security guard recognized me and let me up to Derek's floor. I walked toward his office, excitement bubbling in my chest. But then I saw them through the glass walls of a conference room. Derek and Natalie were standing close together. Too close. His hand rested on the small of her back. They were looking at each other in a way that was not professional, not even friendly. It was intimate. It was the way Derek used to look at me. When Derek spotted me through the glass, they both stepped apart immediately. His face flickered with something that looked like panic before he smoothed it into a casual smile. He came out to greet me, and when I asked what was going on, he had an explanation ready. "Natalie just found out her grandmother passed away," I said. "She was upset. I was just comforting her. That is all." I nodded and forced myself to smile. We went to dinner as planned, but I could barely taste the food. That night I lay awake for hours, replaying that moment in my mind. The way his hand had rested on her back, the way she had leaned into him, the way they had jumped apart like guilty teenagers. A few days later, I called my best friend Lauren. We had been close since our freshman year at Northwestern, and she was the one person I trusted completely. I told her everything I had observed: the late nights, the changed passwords, the scene in the conference room. Lauren listened without interrupting. When I finished, she said something that stayed with me. "Trust your gut, April. It is rarely wrong." But I was not ready to face the truth. Not yet. So I told myself I was being paranoid. I told myself that Derek loved me and would never betray our marriage. I decided to stay silent and watch. Just watch. 8 months before my birthday, Derek's company held their annual Christmas party. It was a lavish affair at a downtown hotel with a live band and an ice sculpture and champagne flowing like water. I wore a silver dress that Derek had complimented when I tried it on at home. I thought maybe the holidays would bring us closer again. During the party, I noticed Natalie across the room. She was wearing a delicate gold necklace with a small pendant. My heart stopped. I recognized that necklace. It was the exact design I had shown Derek months ago in a jewelry store window. I had mentioned how beautiful it was, hoping he might buy it for me for Christmas. Later that evening, I asked Derek casually if he had found any Christmas gifts for me yet. He rubbed his neck and said he had been so busy with work that he had forgotten to shop. I swallowed hard and said nothing. Halfway through the party, I excused myself to use the restroom. As I pushed open the door, I heard a voice from one of the stalls. A woman was on the phone speaking in a hushed but excited tone. "He said he will tell her after the holidays," the voice said. "Just be patient. He promised we will be together soon." The voice was Natalie's. I froze. My hand gripped the edge of the sink so hard my knuckles turned white. I waited until she flushed and emerged from the stall. When she saw me, her face went pale for a split second, before she recovered with a bright smile. "Oh, April. Great party, right?" I smiled back. "Wonderful," I said. "Truly wonderful." I walked out of that restroom with my head held high and my heart shattered into 1,000 pieces. I rejoined Derek at our table. I laughed at the appropriate moments. I posed for photos and made small talk with his colleagues. No one knew that inside I had already begun to die. That night we drove home in silence. Derek hummed along to the radio, oblivious to the devastation sitting in the passenger seat beside him. And I made a decision. I would not confront him. Not yet. First, I needed to know exactly what I was dealing with. I needed proof. And then when the time was right, I would make them both pay for what they had done to me. After that Christmas party, sleep became a stranger to me. I would lie in bed next to Derek, listening to his peaceful breathing, and wonder how he could sleep so soundly while our marriage crumbled around us. For 3 nights I did not sleep at all. I just stared at the ceiling, replaying every suspicious moment, every lie, every time I had ignored my instincts. On the 4th day, I made a decision. If there was something happening between my husband and Natalie, I needed concrete evidence, not suspicions, not gut feelings. Proof. Lauren gave me the name of a private investigator she had heard about through a colleague. His name was Marcus, a former police detective who now worked independently. I called him from my car during my lunch break, speaking in hushed tones, even though no one could hear me. We met at a coffee shop downtown. Marcus was in his 50s, with grey hair and sharp eyes that seemed to notice everything. I told him my suspicions, and he listened without judgment. He explained his rates, his methods, his discretion, policies. I paid him $5,000 up front and asked for detailed reports on my husband's activities. For the next 2 weeks, I went through the motions of my daily life. I smiled at Derek over breakfast. I asked about his day when he came home. I pretended everything was normal while Marcus watched my husband's every move. The report arrived on a Tuesday evening. I was parked in an empty lot near Lake Michigan, the engine running for warmth when I opened the envelope Marcus had handed me. Inside were photographs, dozens of them. Derek and Natalie walking into a boutique hotel downtown, their fingers intertwined. Derek and Natalie kissing in his car before entering the hotel lobby. Derek and Natalie at a restaurant I had never heard of, sitting on the same side of the booth, his arm wrapped around her shoulders. There were receipts, too. The gold necklace I had admired. A designer handbag from a store I could not afford. A spa weekend at a resort 2 hours outside the city. All paid for with the credit card Derek and I shared. I sat in that empty parking lot and read through every page of the report. When I finished, I set it down on the passenger seat and gripped the steering wheel with both hands. I did not cry. I could not cry. I felt completely numb, as if I had left my body and was watching myself from somewhere far away. That night I came home and found Derek already asleep in our bed. I stood in the doorway and watched him for a long time. This man I had trusted. This man I had built a life with. This man who had looked me in the eyes and lied to me over and over again. I went into the bathroom, locked the door, and finally allowed myself to fall apart. I slid down to the cold tile floor and pressed my hand over my mouth to muffle my sobs. 8 years. 8 years of my life given to someone who had thrown them away for a 28-year-old with a ponytail and empty promises. I thought about my mother then, about how my father had betrayed her in almost the exact same way. Was this my fate? Was I destined to repeat her pain, no matter how hard I tried to avoid it? But somewhere in the depths of my grief, a small flame of anger began to flicker. I was not my mother. I had resources she never had. I had strength I did not even know I possessed. And I would not let Derek destroy me the way my father had destroyed her. The next morning I called Marcus again. I asked him to continue the investigation. I wanted to know everything. When the affair started. What Derek had promised Natalie. What their plans were. Marcus agreed without hesitation. 6 weeks later, I had the complete picture. The affair had been going on for 11 months. Derek had told Natalie he was unhappy in his marriage. He had promised to leave me when the timing was right. He had painted me as cold, distant, too focused on my career to be a good wife. Natalie believed every word. She thought she was rescuing him from a loveless marriage. The irony would have been funny if it was not so devastating. I began to build my case carefully. I contacted a divorce attorney named Janet, a sharp woman in her 50s who specialized in high-asset divorces. She reviewed our prenuptial agreement and found something that made her smile. Derek had insisted on a fidelity clause. If either party cheated, the innocent spouse would receive a significantly larger portion of the marital assets. He must have been very confident he would never stray, Janet said with a raised eyebrow. I smiled back. I guess he was wrong. Over the following weeks, I began quietly preparing for my exit. I opened a separate bank account and transferred my personal savings. I rented a storage unit and began moving my most important possessions piece by piece. I found a new apartment, signed the lease, and scheduled my move-in date for the day after my birthday. Derek noticed nothing. He was too busy with Natalie to pay attention to his wife's comings and goings. And I used his distraction to my advantage. I also started seeing a therapist named Dr. Simmons. I needed help processing the betrayal, the anger, the grief. Dr. Simmons was a patient listener who helped me understand that what Derek had done was not my fault. I had been a good wife. I had trusted. I had loved. His choice to cheat reflected his character, not my worth. Those sessions gave me strength. They helped me transform my pain into purpose. I stopped seeing myself as a victim and started seeing myself as a survivor. Derek had chosen to betray me, but I would choose how this story ended. I decided that my 35th birthday would be the stage for his downfall. He wanted to throw me a party perfect. I would let him. And then in front of everyone who mattered, I would reveal exactly who my husband really was. 2 months before my birthday, I broached the subject with Derek over dinner. I was thinking, I said casually, maybe we should throw a big party this year. I am turning 35. That feels significant. Derek looked up from his phone with a smile that did not quite reach his eyes. That is a great idea. We could host it here, invite everyone. I nodded, hiding my satisfaction. That is exactly what I was thinking. We began planning together, or at least Derek thought we were planning together. In reality, I was carefully orchestrating every detail to serve my purpose. I insisted we invite his colleagues from the firm. All of them, I said. You work so hard. It would be nice for them to see our home and meet your wife properly. Derek agreed, probably relieved that I was showing an interest in his work life. What he did not realize was that Natalie would be included in that invitation. I wanted her there. I needed her there. I also created a specific guest list with intentional choices. My mother would fly in from Indiana. My younger sister Brooke would drive up from her apartment in the city. Lauren and her husband Michael would be there as my moral support, though only Lauren knew what I was planning. I made one special request that surprised Derek. I want to invite your parents, I said. They have not visited in over a year. It would mean so much to have them here for my birthday. Derek hesitated. His parents lived in Florida and rarely made the trip north, but I pressed the issue and eventually he agreed to call them. They said yes immediately. His mother sounded thrilled. I also ensured that Derek's boss, Mr. Patterson, and his wife received an invitation. Derek was still chasing that partner position. He would never turn down an opportunity to impress the senior leadership. In total, 45 people would attend my birthday party. 45 witnesses to the unraveling of my husband's carefully constructed lies. While Derek focused on the catering and the decorations, I focused on my evidence. I created a video slideshow that appeared to celebrate our 8 years of marriage. Happy photos, vacation memories, our wedding day. But I also prepared a second USB drive with very different content. Screenshots of Derek's messages to Natalie that Marcus had obtained. Photographs of them together at the hotel. Receipts from all the gifts he had purchased with our shared accounts. I hid the USB drive in the pocket of the red dress I planned to wear. Janet, my attorney, had the divorce papers ready. They were sitting in my desk drawer at work, waiting for the right moment. She had reviewed every document, prepared every argument. When the time came, Derek would not know what hit him. 1 week before my birthday, I drove to my mother's house in Indiana. She made tea and sat across from me at her kitchen table, the same table where we had shared so many difficult conversations over the years. Mum, I said, there is something I need to tell you. I told her everything. The affair, the investigation, the evidence, my plan. When I finished, she was crying silently, tears streaming down her cheeks. I am so sorry, baby, she whispered. I hoped this would never happen to you. I took her hands in mine. It is happening, said. But I am not going to fall apart like you did. I am going to fight. My mother looked at me then with something I had rarely seen in her eyes. Pride. I always told you to be independent, she said. Now I understand why. But April, I am proud of you. You are not running, you are fighting. She promised to be by my side at the party, no matter what happened, and knowing she would be there gave me more courage than I ever thought possible. The night before my birthday, Derek came home with a bouquet of roses. He kissed my cheek and said, "Tomorrow is going to be perfect, babe. I have been planning some special surprises." I smiled and accepted the flowers. "Yes," I replied. "I think it will be." That night, I lay next to the man who had betrayed me for the last time. I listened to his breathing grow slow and steady, and I felt nothing. No love, no anger, just calm determination. Tomorrow, everything would change. I woke on the morning of my 35th birthday to the smell of coffee and pancakes. Derek had prepared breakfast in bed, complete with a small vase of flowers on the tray. He kissed my forehead and wished me a happy birthday. I thanked him with a smile that felt foreign on my face. We ate together in bed like we used to in the early years of our marriage. Derek talked about the party preparations. The caterers would arrive at 3, the bartender at 4. Guests were expected around 6. After breakfast, I took a long shower and spent an unusual amount of time getting ready. I curled my hair and applied my makeup with precision. When I finally slipped into the red dress, I studied myself in the full-length mirror. The woman looking back at me was not the same woman who had discovered those photographs 4 months ago. This woman was ready. This woman was dangerous. The USB drive sat in my pocket, a small weight that represented everything. Guests began arriving as the sun started to set. Our house filled with laughter music and the clinking of glasses. Derek moved through the crowd like the perfect host, shaking hands, making jokes, keeping drinks filled. He played his role flawlessly. My mother arrived with Brooke and I hugged them both tightly. Lauren squeezed my hand and whispered, "I am here if you need me." Mr. Patterson and his wife complimented our home and our marriage. Derek's parents embraced me warmly, completely unaware of the storm that was coming. And then Natalie walked through the door. She wore a simple black dress that probably cost more than my monthly car payment. Her hair was down, and she avoided looking directly at me. I watched her scan the room until her eyes found Derek. They shared a brief glance that lasted less than a second, but I caught it. I approached Natalie with a warm smile. "So glad you could make it," I said, and I pulled her into a hug that made her stiffen slightly. "Derek has told me so much about you. You are practically part of the family." Natalie forced a laugh that sounded like breaking glass. "That is so sweet of you, April. Happy birthday." I thanked her and moved on, leaving her looking unsettled. Good. I wanted her uncomfortable. As the evening progressed, I noticed Derek and Natalie stealing glances at each other across the room. At one point, I watched Derek slip away toward the garden, and a few minutes later, Natalie followed. I positioned myself near the back door and observed them through the window. They were talking in hushed tones near the rose bushes. Derek's hand brushed Natalie's arm. She looked up at him with an expression that made my stomach turn. Before they could notice me watching, I stepped outside. "Derek, honey," I called out cheerfully. "There you are. Can you introduce me to your favorite coworker again? I feel like I do not know her well enough." Derek's face flickered with surprise before he composed himself. "Of course. Natalie, you remember my wife April?" I extended my hand to Natalie and held it a moment longer than necessary. "Of course I remember, Natalie. Derek talks about you all the time." Natalie pulled her hand back quickly. "That is nice to hear," she said, but her voice wavered. I smiled and looped my arm through Derek's. "Let us go inside," I suggested. "It is time for my speech." The three of us walked back into the house together, and I could feel the tension radiating from both of them. I positioned myself at the center of the living room and asked for everyone's attention. Derek stood nearby, his expression proud and unsuspecting. I picked up a champagne glass and raised it. "Thank you all for being here tonight," I began. 35 years feels like a milestone worth celebrating. and I want to thank my husband for 8 years of surprises. I paused and looked directly at Derek. Some surprises were wonderful, I continued. Some, well, let us just say they taught me a lot about people. There was scattered laughter from the crowd, who assumed I was joking. Derek's smile remained fixed, but I saw his jaw tighten. Natalie, standing near the back of the room, gripped her wine glass so tightly I thought it might shatter. I finished my toast and sipped my champagne. The party resumed, but Derek grabbed my elbow and pulled me toward the kitchen. "What the hell was that?" he hissed once we were alone. "Are you trying to embarrass me?" I kept my voice calm. "Embarrass you? I was just thanking you for the surprises, like the necklace you bought Natalie for Christmas, or the hotel room you booked last month." Derek's face went pale. "What are you talking about?" "I know everything, Derek. I have known for 4 months." For a moment he said nothing. Then his expression shifted from shock to anger. "You are crazy," he spat. "You are making things up. This is about my reputation. Do you understand what you could do to my career?" "Your reputation," I repeated. "What about our marriage?" Something in Derek snapped. His hand came up fast, and before I could react, he slapped me across the face. The sound echoed off the kitchen walls. "Know your place," he snarled. "You do not get to ruin me." My cheek burned. I could feel the heat spreading across my skin. But I did not stumble. I did not cry. Instead, I stood up straight, looked my husband directly in the eyes, and I laughed. It was not a hysterical laugh or a broken laugh. It was calm and controlled and absolutely devastating. "Oh, Derek," I said, "you just made this so much easier for me." He stepped back, confused by my reaction. This was not what he expected. He expected tears. He expected submission. He expected me to crumble. Instead, I walked out of the kitchen and into the living room, where 45 guests stood waiting. Several of them had heard the slap. They stared at me with wide eyes, taking in the red mark blooming on my cheek. And Natalie, standing near the window, looked like she had seen a ghost. I stood in the center of my living room with 45 pairs of eyes fixed on me. The music had stopped. The chatter had died. Everyone could see the red mark on my face, still fresh and stinging. My mother rose from her chair, her expression murderous, but I held up a hand to stop her. "Not yet." "I apologize for the interruption," I said, my voice steady and clear. "But my husband just gave me a birthday gift I was not expecting." He slapped me. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Derek's parents jumped to their feet. His mother pressed a hand to her chest, her face white with shock. Derek burst out of the kitchen behind me. "She is lying," he shouted. "She provoked me. She has been acting crazy all night." I turned to face him with a smile that held no warmth. "Since we are sharing Derek, let me share something too." I reached into my pocket and pulled out the USB drive. I walked to the television mounted on the wall and plugged it in. Derek lunged toward me, but Lauren's husband, Michael, stepped into his path. "Let her speak," Michael said firmly. "I think we all need to hear this." The television flickered to life, and the first photograph appeared on the screen. Derek and Natalie holding hands outside a boutique hotel downtown. The next image showed them kissing in his car, then another of them at a restaurant sitting so close they looked like one person. A chorus of gasps filled the room. Someone dropped a wine glass and it shattered on the hardwood floor. I clicked to the next slide. These were screenshots of text messages between Derek and Natalie. The words were blown up large enough for everyone to read. "She has no idea. I will leave her when the time is right. You are the one I love. I cannot wait until we can be together publicly. She does not deserve you. Soon, baby. Just be patient. After her birthday, I will figure out the right time." Derek's mother turned to her son, her voice breaking. "Tell me this is not true," she demanded. "Tell me you did not do this." Derek stood frozen, his mouth opening and closing like a fish pulled from water. He could not find words. For the first time in his life, Derek had nothing to say. His father, a stern man who rarely showed emotion, spoke in a voice thick with disappointment. "You are a disgrace to this family." I watched the scene unfold with a strange sense of detachment. All those months of pain, of planning, of waiting. And now it was happening exactly as I had imagined. Mr. Patterson, Derek's boss, stepped forward. He looked at Natalie, then at Derek, and his expression was ice cold. "We will discuss this on Monday," he said. "Both of you." I knew what that meant. The firm had strict policies about workplace relationships, especially when deception was involved. Derek's career, the thing he valued more than his marriage, was about to collapse around him. Natalie began to cry. She pushed through the crowd, trying to reach Derek. "You said you loved me," she sobbed. "You said you were going to leave her. You promised we would be together." Derek did not move to comfort her. He did not defend her. He simply stood there, watching his carefully constructed life fall apart. I addressed Natalie directly. "He told you he would leave me," I asked. "That is interesting. He told me he was working late. I guess we were both lied to." Natalie looked at Derek, waiting for him to say something, anything, but he remained silent. In that moment, she realized the truth. He was never going to choose her. He was never going to choose anyone but himself. Natalie fled from the house, her heels clicking loudly against the floor. The front door slammed behind her. Derek finally found his voice. "April, please." He moved toward me with his hands outstretched. "Let me explain. It was a mistake. I love you. I was going to end it." I stepped back, putting distance between us. "You hit me, Derek. In front of everyone. There is no coming back from that." I reached into my purse and pulled out an envelope. I handed it to him. "These are divorce papers. Janet, my attorney, will contact you on Monday. I suggest you find representation quickly." Derek stared at the envelope like it was a snake about to bite him. "You planned all of this?" I held his gaze without flinching. "You gave me 4 months to plan while you were busy with your girlfriend. Consider this my thank you gift." I turned to face the assembled guests, many of whom still looked stunned. "I apologize that my birthday party turned into this, but I needed witnesses. I needed everyone to see who my husband really is." My mother came to stand beside me. She put her arm around my shoulders and spoke clearly enough for everyone to hear. "You did the right thing, April." I looked around the room one last time. At Derek's devastated parents, at my friends who had supported me through this night, without fully understanding what was happening, at the empty space where Natalie had stood. "Thank you all for coming," I said. "The party is over, but my new life starts tonight." I walked to the table where my wedding ring had been catching the light all evening. I slipped it off my finger and set it down in front of Derek. He stared at the ring, and for the first time I saw genuine fear in his eyes. Not remorse, not love. Fear of what he had lost. Fear of what was coming. I picked up my purse, the one I had packed that morning, with everything I needed for my new apartment. Lauren and Brooke flanked me as I walked toward the door. Before I stepped outside, I turned back one last time. Derek stood alone in the middle of the room, the ring sitting on the table between us. His parents would not look at him. His colleagues were already whispering. The empire of lies he had built had crumbled in a single evening, and I was free. I walked to my car, climbed inside, and drove away from the house I had shared with him for 7 years. I did not cry. I did not look back. I simply drove toward the new apartment, waiting for me across the city, toward the life I would build without him. Behind me, through the rearview mirror, I could see the lights of the party still glowing. But that world no longer belonged to me. My new world was waiting. The first weeks after my birthday were harder than I expected. My new apartment was small, just one bedroom in a building in Lincoln Park, but it was mine. I spent the first few nights lying awake, staring at an unfamiliar ceiling, trying to process everything that had happened. The pain was still there, but it had changed. I was not grieving Derek anymore. I was grieving the 8 years I had invested in a lie, the future I had imagined, the family we had planned to create. All of it was gone, and I had to learn how to build something new from the ashes. I continued seeing Dr. Simmons twice a week. We worked through the trauma of the betrayal, the slap, the public confrontation. She helped me understand that healing was not linear. Some days I would feel strong and certain. Other days the anger would surge up without warning, and I would have to sit with it until it passed. I started keeping a journal. Every night before bed I would write down everything I was feeling. The rage, the sadness, the moments of unexpected relief. Putting the words on paper helped me process emotions that felt too big to hold inside my head. Derek tried to contact me repeatedly in those first weeks. He called, he texted. He showed up at my office once, and security had to escort him out. His messages were a mixture of pleading and accusations. He loved me. He was sorry. I had humiliated him. He would fight for our marriage. I had ruined his career. I blocked his number and communicated only through my attorney. The divorce proceeded faster than I had anticipated. Derek's violation of our prenuptial agreement, combined with the assault in front of witnesses, gave me significant leverage. His attorney advised him to settle quickly to avoid further public embarrassment. Within 4 months, our divorce was finalized. I received a fair portion of our assets, enough to pay off my apartment, enough to provide a cushion while I rebuilt. Derek kept the house, but I heard through mutual friends that he could barely afford the mortgage without my income contributing. Natalie was fired from the firm within a week of my birthday party. Apparently, Mr. Patterson had zero tolerance for the kind of scandal they had created. Derek managed to hold on to his position for another 2 months before quietly resigning. The partner track he had sacrificed our marriage for vanished like smoke. I wish I could say I felt satisfied by their downfall, but mostly I just felt tired. Revenge had given me a target, a purpose during those dark months of planning. But now that it was over, I had to figure out who I was without the anger driving me forward. Work became my sanctuary. I threw myself into projects with renewed energy, and 6 months after my divorce, I received the promotion I had been working toward for years. I became director of marketing, the position I had dreamed about since joining the company. My corner office overlooked the Chicago skyline, and sometimes I would stand at the window and marvel at how far I had come. I started running every morning before work. The physical exertion helped me sleep better and gave me time to clear my head. I ran along the lakefront, watching the sun rise over Lake Michigan, feeling my legs grow stronger with each passing week. I adopted a cat from a local shelter. She was a ginger tabby named Cinnamon, and she filled my apartment with warmth and companionship. Coming home to her greeting me at the door made the quiet evenings feel less lonely. I reconnected with old friends I had neglected during my marriage. I joined a book club for professional women and met someone named Denise, who quickly became a close confidant. She was 42, divorced herself, and understood exactly what I was going through. The first year is the hardest, Denise told me one evening over wine. But then you realize you were carrying a weight you did not even know was there. When you finally set it down, you feel lighter than you have in years. She was right. Slowly, gradually, I began to feel like myself again. Not the woman Derek had married, not the woman who had tolerated his lies, but someone new, someone stronger. 8 months after my divorce was finalized, I ran into Derek's parents at a restaurant downtown. I spotted them across the room and considered leaving before they noticed me. But before I could move, Mrs. Patterson walked over to my table. I tensed, preparing for hostility, but her expression was soft, almost apologetic. "April," she said, "I am so sorry for what my son did to you. You deserved better." I was surprised by the tears that sprang to my eyes. I took her hand and squeezed it gently. "Thank you. I hope Derek finds his way eventually." She nodded, and something unspoken passed between us. Forgiveness, maybe, or at least acceptance. As she walked away, I realized that I meant what I had said. I did not wish Derek harm. I simply wished him gone from my thoughts, from my heart, from the life I was building. And slowly that was happening. On my 36th birthday, I hosted a small gathering at my apartment. Just 10 people. My mother, Brooke, Lauren, Denise, a few colleagues who had become genuine friends. We ordered pizza and drank champagne and laughed until our sides hurt. There were no decorations, no elaborate plans, no speeches. Just people who loved me gathered in a space that was entirely my own. I looked around at their faces lit by candlelight and felt something I had not felt in a very long time. Contentment. True, deep contentment. I did not need a husband to feel complete. I did not need a big house or an impressive party. I needed authenticity. I needed people who saw me, really saw me, and loved me anyway. That night, after everyone had gone home, I stood on my small balcony and looked out at the city lights. I thought about the woman I had been a year ago, standing in that kitchen with a red mark on her cheek and a laugh rising in her throat. Derek thought slapping me would put me in my place, but all he did was show me exactly where I no longer belonged. I smiled into the darkness. I did not know what the future held. Maybe I would fall in love again someday. Maybe I would not. But for the first time in my life, I was not defining myself by my relationship status. I was defining myself by my own choices, my own strength, my own capacity for resilience. The betrayal had broken something in me. Yes. But in the breaking, something new had emerged. Something better. I thought about the advice my mother had given me all those years ago. Never depend on anyone for your happiness. But if you find love, real love, hold on to it with everything you have. I understood now what she really meant. The real love she was talking about was not the love of a partner. It was the love I had finally learned to give myself. The love that said I was worthy, even when someone treated me as though I was not. The love that gave me the courage to walk away from everything familiar and start again. That was the love worth holding on to. That was the love that would never betray me. So if you are watching this and you are in a place where someone is making you feel small, where you are swallowing your pain to keep the peace, I want you to remember my story. You deserve better. You are stronger than you know. And sometimes the bravest thing you can do is laugh in the face of someone who thinks they can break you. They cannot break you. Not unless you let them. I did not let Derek break me. And wherever you are, whatever you are facing, I hope you find the courage to stand tall too. Now I want to hear from you. Have you ever faced a moment where you had to choose between staying silent and speaking your truth? What gave you the strength to stand up for yourself? Share your story in the comments below. I read every single one, and your experiences might help someone else who is going through something similar. If this story touched you, please hit that like button and share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Subscribe to this channel so you do not miss more stories about resilience, strength, and new beginnings. Thank you so much for being here with me tonight. Whatever challenges you are facing, I am sending you courage, I am sending you hope, and I am reminding you that the best chapters of your life might still be unwritten. Take care of yourself. You are worth it.